If you're just joining us, this is a place where we take down the walls brick by brick, pull back the curtain on life's rawest moments. And around here, nothing has ever been off limits. Life, death, the mess, and a few stories I'd honestly rather forget. But I'm going to share them anyway. And this season, we're going deeper than ever, exploring the truth behind the masks we wear and the voices that we sometimes ignore all the time. Today's episode is called The Voice in the Fog. It's about the mysterious power of being heard, even when you least expect it, and how one moment, one voice can change everything, even when you're lost in the thick. Let's dive on in. You're listening to The Mortals, where we talk about life and death and everything beautifully, messily human in between. New episodes drop every Tuesday, so if you want stories that'll make you feel a little more alive and maybe a little less alone, mark your calendar. Set a reminder even, tie a string around your finger, whatever works. And if you haven't hit follow yet, now's your chance. Go ahead, click it. Otherwise, rumor has it you'll end up as the only person at a funeral who forgets the lyrics to Amazing Grace and you accidentally start singing some dumb song like Don't Stop Believing. Don't be that person. Hit follow. Let's get into today's story. When you hear stories of miracles, it's easy to write them off as coincidences, a trick of the mind, a fluke of timing. But every now and then, a story comes that makes you stop, take a breath, wonder what really saved them. And this is one of those stories. It takes place in the quiet hills of Pennsylvania, where fog rolls in like a ghost and roads curl like question marks around deep woods and forgotten ravines, where one teenage girl, just 17 years old, was pulled from certain death by a voice no one can explain. And no, it wasn't her own. Real quick, I just want to put you onto something that completely leveled up how I create. If you've ever thought about starting a podcast or even creating content that looks good and sounds next level, but you say, I don't have the equipment, Descript. And it just dropped something ridiculously wild. It's AI avatars. Say you're terrible in front of a camera, but just imagine being able to generate a video where you read the script, but you don't hit record. You write it. Descript makes it look like it's you saying it, and it looks really good. It doesn't look awkward, not robotic, it's seamless. If you pair that with what Descript already does with helping me with my podcast, editing with text-based, and if you're creating anything, a podcast or content for socials, or even you're just making videos, do not sleep on this. Go to get.descript.com/Nathan Morris to try it for free right now. That's get.descript.com/Nathan Morris. Link is also in the description. Now, back to the Mortals. Her name's not Emily, but for the sake of this story, we'll call her that. And it begins, like most mornings in her life, early. Emily had always been a morning person. She lived in a small town where the high school was a 25-minute drive along winding back roads. Roads she could navigate with her eyes closed. And some mornings, she'd drive in total silence, just letting the soft rattle of her old Honda Civic fill the quiet. Other mornings, it was music, blaring, cathartic, her own version of morning coffee. But this morning, it was different. The fog was heavy, thicker than usual. Not the gentle mist that kissed her windshield most autumn mornings. No, this fog was soupy and dense. It didn't move. It swallowed sound. Even with her headlights on full beam, Emily could barely see 5 feet ahead of her. Still, she pressed on. She had an exam that morning in English literature, something about Gatsby. She hadn't finished the last chapter, but she figured she'd skim it before first period. She glanced at her phone just a second to check the time. 7:43 a.m. The turn was coming up. She reached for her water bottle, looked back at the road, but it was too late. There was a patch of wet leaves scattered across the bend like a slick trap. The Civic's tires lost grip. The steering wheel jerked left and then right. Emily slammed the brakes, but the car had already committed. In seconds, it left the road. The descent wasn't sharp at first, but it accelerated, and fast. Trees blurred, branches snapped. The sound, the metal meeting bark, echoes like thunder beneath the canopy. Then silence. The car had come to rest in a gully, shielded by underbrush, hidden from the road. No tire marks visible, no broken branches to guide the eye. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Inside, Emily was conscious, barely. Her leg was pinned beneath the dashboard. Blood trickled from a gash above her eye. Her seatbelt had held, but just by a morsel. She tried to move, screamed. Nothing came out but a hoarse whisper. She fumbled for her phone. The screen was cracked, dead. The fog was so thick, even the dim light from the rising sun couldn't reach her. She was cold, shivering. Emily's body trembled, not just from injury, but fear. And that's when she heard it. A voice. Not inside her head, no. Not a memory. A real voice. Calm, gentle, male. But not anyone she knows. He said, "You need to stay awake." She froze. It didn't sound panicked or rushed even. It wasn't demanding. It was just there. "Can you hear me? Stay awake. I need you to press the horn. Someone will hear it." In that moment, Emily thought she might be hallucinating. Maybe it was the head injury. Maybe she was dying. But the voice didn't let her go. It returned every few minutes, repeating the same instruction. Press the horn. Her hands moved like molasses. She reached for the center of the wheel and pressed. The sound was faint. The battery was draining. But the horn let out this dull, muted honk. Then again and again. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Emily faded in and out. Each time she came to, the voice was still there. You're not alone. Keep going. Help is close. At 9:04 a.m., a woman named Denise Jensen was driving her son to preschool when she thought she heard something. A horn. Just once. She rolled down her window. Nothing. There it was again. It was faint. Just enough, though, to make her stop. She turned into a gravel pull-off and called 911. I think I heard a car horn in the woods. I know it sounds weird, but the dispatcher didn't hesitate. A local trooper had just passed through the area an hour earlier. No sign of anything. But something about Denise's voice made the dispatcher send a unit. It took over 20 minutes for rescue to find Emily. If she hadn't pressed the horn, if Denise hadn't opened her window, if the fog had been any thicker, she would have died. When medics arrived, Emily was unconscious, but alive. They cut her from the car, stabilized her, airlifted her to the nearest trauma center. A broken femur, concussion, severe bruising, no spinal injury, no internal bleeding. She would survive. Weeks later, when Emily could speak again, she told her mother about this voice. She described it clearly, repeated the exact phrases. Her mother, shaken. She said something strange. Years earlier, Emily's grandfather, her mom's father, had died of a heart attack in that exact stretch of woods. He used to take that road daily. He used to say, "You're never really alone. Someone's always riding shotgun." Was it her grandfather? Was it her subconscious? Or was it divine? Science. It tells you it was survival instinct, a neurological echo, the mind trying to protect the body. But Emily doesn't believe that. To this day, she says, I didn't want to live that day. I was in a dark place, but something or someone wanted me to stay. There are stories you hear that change how you think. Then there are stories like this that change how you feel about life, about time, about how thin the veil might be between this world and something more. And whether it was divine, ancestral, or inexplicable, something kept Emily alive. And maybe the most miraculous part of it all is that she listened. This is The Mortals. This is the place where we take down the walls brick by brick and pull back the curtain on life's rawest moments. Around here, nothing is off limits. Life, death, the mess, the messy desk, and a few stories I'd honestly rather not share and forget. But I'll share them anyway. Because this season, I'm going deeper than ever and exploring the truth behind the masks that we wear, the voices that we sometimes ignore. We're touching it all. And today's episode is a double feature, a matinee. 2 true stories that'll stick with you long after the episode ends. One begins with a missed flight that should have ruined everything and everyone. The other, an empty chair that no one expected to be filled, let alone become empty in the first place, until it was. These aren't ghost stories, but they might haunt you. This is The Mortals, where we talk about life, death, and everything beautifully, messily human in between. New episodes drop every Tuesday, so if you want stories that'll make you feel a little more alive and maybe a little less alone, mark your calendar, people, set a reminder, tie a string around your finger, whatever works. And before we jump in, a quick warning. If you don't hit follow, you may be cursed to give the eulogy at your ex's funeral with our new partner sitting front row, judging your every word, unblinking, cross-armed, possibly chewing gum even. Avoid that. Hit follow. All right, let's get into it. There are moments in life we only understand in hindsight. Moments that don't seem like anything at all until we realize they changed absolutely everything. This is the story of one of those moments. It's a story about running late, something we've all done. About forgotten phones and long security lines. About a man named Daniel who missed a flight. And by missing it, his fate was saved. But what makes this story so strange and so hard to ignore is why he missed it. And what happened when he tried to explain it. Daniel was 34, an architect, not particularly spiritual, not into anything weird either, logical, grounded. The kind of guy who double-checked the locks every night and always showed up 5 minutes early. The guy who had the mother that said, if you're not early, you're late. He was flying to Los Angeles for a client pitch. It was a big deal, career-defining. He had stayed up late, perfecting his presentation, and then even set 2 alarms for 5 a.m. and 5:05 a.m. He'd laid out his clothes, packed a charger, zipped his suitcase, closed up, ready to go by midnight. And the next morning, he woke up at 6:27. Both alarms not set. He still doesn't know how. He panicked, threw on his clothes, skipped breakfast, frantically opened the Lyft app and scheduled a car while brushing his teeth. The flight was American Airlines 1405, departing JFK at 8:10 a.m. He got to the airport at 7:19. Tight, but possible. But then came security. The TSA line snaked around like a cruel joke. Daniel cursed under his breath. He checked his watch every 30 seconds. Then, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He silenced it. Buzzed again. He looked down. Unknown number. Same number. Something in him told him to answer. And so he did. And that's when things got strange. The voice on the line wasn't familiar. It was calm, gentle. A woman's voice. She said, "Mr. Daniel Reynolds? This is Donna, calling from your hotel in Los Angeles. I'm just confirming your early check-in today." Odd. He did not request that call. And he responded, "Sorry, who did you say you were with?" Silence. Then, "Please don't get on that plane." The line went dead. Daniel stood frozen. The buzz of airport life moved around him, but he was completely still. Please don't get on that plane. It didn't make sense. His stomach dropped. He reached the front of the line. TSA waved him through. He had 10 minutes to get to the gate. He started to run. Then, he stopped. Something told him, don't. He didn't know why. He didn't know who Donna was. But he couldn't shake the feeling that if he boarded that flight, he wouldn't come home. He let the plane go, sat in a terminal Starbucks, ordered a coffee he didn't drink. Then the alerts came in. American Airlines Flight 1405 never made it to Los Angeles. 10 minutes after takeoff, it lost an engine. The pilot declared an emergency. Witnesses say the right wing exploded in midair. The plane went down in a remote field outside rural America. There were no survivors. Daniel stared at the screen. His name was on that manifest. His seat, 14C. He should have been there. Every friend, every coworker, every relative, they thought he was. His phone rang again, and it was his mom crying hysterically. She had just seen the news. He couldn't explain it. He didn't try to. He just said, "I missed the flight." 2 days later, Daniel called the hotel in Los Angeles, just to follow the thread. No Donna on staff. No one had called him. No record of any call to his number. He checked his call log. There was no record of the number. It wasn't even listed. Daniel never found out who or what stopped him from getting on that plane. Some say it was intuition. Others say fate. But Daniel, he says, it felt like mercy. And ever since that day, he never slept through an alarm clock again. Sometimes miracles seem to come loud, and other times very quiet. Sometimes they dial your number. This is The Mortals. There's a moment in every person's life, the one that you definitely didn't plan for, that splits a story into two. There was before, and then there's everything that came after. For 41-year-old Mark Halperin, that moment was a phone call, a Tuesday morning, with a police officer's voice on the other end. He was told something no parent should ever hear. And what he did next changed the lives of more than 3,000 children. Mark lived in Denver, divorced, single dad to a 14-year-old boy named Jonah. They had their routine, morning pancakes, bad dad jokes, ESPN on mute in the background. Jonah was quiet, a thoughtful kid, a little awkward, but in a beautiful way. He loved to build things, Legos, models, circuits. He had dreams of being an aerospace engineer. That Tuesday morning, Jonah didn't come down for breakfast, and Mark assumed he was dragging his feet again. Until the call came, 7:42 a.m. A driver had lost control, hit the sidewalk. Jonah had actually left already and was walking to school. He was gone before his father even arrived. Just like that. Mark didn't speak for 2 days. He didn't eat, didn't cry, didn't scream. He just sat in Jonah's room, staring at the unmade bed, at the desk lamp still glowing from the night before, at the empty chair. That chair would become a symbol, a haunting one. He thought about putting it in storage, then burning it, then chaining it to the sidewalk where Jonah died. But instead, he left it. And one night, 3 weeks after the funeral, Mark sat in that chair and said out loud, "I can't live for myself anymore. So I'll live for him." Mark didn't know what that meant at first, living for Jonah. He wasn't rich, wasn't a public speaker, wasn't trying to make a difference. He was broken. And then one day, while scrolling aimlessly on Facebook like we all do, he saw a post. It was a public high school asking for help. They needed someone to volunteer in their STEM lab twice a week. He clicked it. He showed up. And something shifted. The first time he helped a student solder a wire, he felt Jonah. Not in a mystical way, just in a warm, present way. He kept coming back. By year 2, Mark had created a weekend club, the Launchpad. It started with just 6 kids, then 15, then 40. He bought tools out of pocket, got donations, built a mini maker space in an unused basement room. By year 4, he'd quit his job and turned the Launchpad into a nonprofit, partnering with local tech firms, universities. The program grew into a haven for kids who didn't quite fit anywhere else. The quiet kids, the awkward kids, the creative kids, kids just like Jonah. 10 years later, on the anniversary of Jonah's death, Mark gave a speech to a graduating class of Launchpad students. He brought the chair, that same wooden desk chair Jonah sat in the night before he died. Worn, scratched, still bearing the pencil marks carved into the edge. He placed it on stage and said, "This chair was empty for a long time. It still is, in some ways, but it also became the place I found the rest of you." He told them about the grief, the darkness, the moment he chose not to disappear into it. And 300 students stood and clapped, most of them with tears in their eyes. Some of them would go on to become engineers, coders, teachers. One of them, Jonah's age, would eventually take over the nonprofit. And the chair, Mark said, would stay in the launch pad forever. As a reminder, not of death, but what can come after it. Sometimes grief guts you. Sometimes it buries you. And other times, if you let it, it becomes your greatest teacher. Mark lost his son, but he found 3,000 others. If someone you loved changed your entire life after they were gone, I would love to hear your story. Become immortal. Link is in the description and show notes. Might just share it. And until next time, that empty chair may not be empty forever. Thank you for listening to The Mortals. If you're ever experiencing something that you feel to be miraculous, unexplainable, or just need to share your story, you can reach out to us. Join The Mortals. Link is in the description and show notes. Your story might be the one that saves someone else. Or I might share. Welcome back to The Mortals, my friends, the place where we rip down the walls brick by brick, exposing the raw, chilling edges of life's most harrowing moments. Because here, nothing is off limits. Life, death, the shadowy in-between, and those stories that cling to your mind long after the lights go out. I'm Nathan Morris, your guide through tales of near death, the unexplainable, and the mysteries that refuse to be solved. But before we dive into today's darkness, I've got a little warning for you. If you're new here or haven't hit that follow button yet, beware. Because rumor has it, if you don't follow The Mortals, you're going to find yourself at a funeral, accidentally tripping over the guest book, sending it flying into the lap of the grieving widow during the eulogy. Don't be that person. Save yourself the haunting embarrassment. Just hit follow right now and join our community of shadowed souls. And don't forget, new episodes drop every Tuesday and Thursday. So set a reminder to keep up with the chills. Tie a string around your finger, whatever works. Today, we've got two stories that'll make your skin crawl. Two real, lesser-known accounts of survival against impossible odds, laced with whispers of the unknown. One involves a man lost in a frozen wilderness, guided by a presence that he cannot explain. The other, a woman trapped in a nightmare of her own home, saved by something or someone beyond comprehension. Let's step into the fog of the unexplainable. Our first story takes us to the bone-chilling cold of northern Minnesota. In the brutal winter of 1977, near the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness, a vast, unforgiving maze of frozen lakes and dense forest where the wind doesn't just blow, it screams with a hunger all of its own. Civilization is a distant memory out here. If you get lost, you're on your own, swallowed by a landscape that doesn't care if you live or if you die. It's here we meet a 29-year-old man named Thomas Reed. Not his real name, but we'll call him that for this story. Thomas was a rugged outdoorsman, a logger by trade, who had spent his life wrestling with the wilderness. He thought he knew every trick, that this land could throw at him. But on February the 3rd, 1977, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. It started as a routine solo trip. Thomas was checking trap lines that he'd set for fur, a gritty side gig to scrape by during the slow winter months. He packed light, snowshoes strapped to his back, a rifle slung over his shoulder, a handful of jerky, and a thermos of black coffee steaming in the frigid air. He expected to be back at his cabin by dusk, no sweat. The sky was a heavy gray when he set out at dawn, the temperature clawing at -10 degrees Fahrenheit, with a wind chill that sliced through his layers like a blade, nipping at any exposed skin with cruel bites. His boots crunched through deep, It started as a routine solo trip. Thomas was checking trap lines he'd set for fur, a gritty side gig to scrape by during the slow winter months. He packed light, snowshoes strapped to his back, a rifle slung over his shoulder, a handful of jerky, and a thermos of black coffee steaming in the frigid air. He expected to be back at his cabin by dusk, no sweat. The sky was this heavy gray when he set out at dawn, the temperature clawing at -10 degrees Fahrenheit, with a wind chill that sliced through his layers like a blade, nipping at any exposed skin. His boots crunched through knee-deep snow, each step echoing in the eerie silence of the woods, broken only by the occasional groan of a pine bending under the weight of ice. He moved with purpose, his breath fogging in front of him, but as the morning dragged into afternoon, the air grew thicker, the clouds lower, darker, like a predator closing in. A blizzard was brewing, and Thomas could feel it in his bones. The way the wind picked up, whispering threats through the trees, the way the first stray flakes stung his face like tiny shards of glass. Still, he pressed on. His stubbornness was outweighing the warning in his gut. He thought he could outrun the storm, beat it back to safety. That was his first mistake, and it nearly became his last. By mid-afternoon, the blizzard struck with a vengeance. Winds roared at 40 miles per hour, whipping snow into a blinding, suffocating whiteout. Visibility dropped to nothing. Thomas couldn't see his own hand in front of his face, let alone a landmark. He tried to backtrack, squinting into the void, but every direction was a wall of white, an endless, disorienting abyss. His tracks were gone, buried in seconds by these relentless drifts, and panic clawed at his chest, a cold deeper than the wind seeping into his core. He was lost, miles from shelter, with night falling fast like a guillotine, in the boundary waters. Night in a blizzard isn't just dangerous, it's a death warrant. Hypothermia can kill you in hours, turning your body into a frozen statue, and no one would find you until spring, if even find you. And the stage was set for a desperate night for survival. And something beyond understanding was about to step into this storm. Let's sink into the raw terror of Thomas Reed's situation. He's alone in the boundary waters, trapped in a ferocious blizzard, with temperatures now plummeting to -20. His fingers are numb, stiff as wood, his face raw and burning from the wind's merciless lash. His body is betraying him, each step through the snow heavier, slower, like wading through wet cement. He knows if he stops moving, he's finished. Hypothermia will creep in, whispering sweet lies of warmth as it drags him into a sleep he won't ever wake from. Every pine tree is a ghostly silhouette, every gust of wind a howl that sounds like his name being called by the void. He's been staggering for hours, and dusk has bled into pitch black night. His flashlight battery flickers, the weak beam swallowed by the swirling snow, barely illuminating the next foot of ground. He's got maybe an hour left before his body gives out completely, before the cold claims him for good. Then, in the suffocating dark, something pierces the chaos. Not the wind's scream, not a branch snapping under snow, but a sound that shouldn't be there. A voice. A low, steady whisper, almost buried by the storm's roar, but unmistakable. It murmurs, "Keep going. Turn left." Thomas stops dead, not from exhaustion, but from a jolt of pure shock. His breath catches, ice forming on his lips as he whips his head around, shining his dying light into the endless white. There's nothing. No one. No rescue team, no other soul for miles in this frozen hell. His heart slams against his ribs. Has he lost it? Is his mind cracking under the strain, conjuring phantoms as death closes in? He stands there, snow pelting his face like needles, waiting, listening, half expecting silence to prove that he's mad. But the voice comes again, clearer now, cutting through the gale like a lifeline. Left. Now. Shelter's close. It's calm, almost tender, like a father guiding a lost child through a nightmare. Thomas's mind reels. Part of him screams it's a trick, a delusion, but another part, the part that's clinging to any shred of hope, urges him to obey. His legs tremble as he veers left, trudging into a drift deeper than before, driven by this phantom command. Each step a gamble with his fading strength. Minutes stretch into what feels like eternity. His legs are lead, his vision is blurring, snow's caking around his eyelashes until he's half blind. The cold is a living thing now, gnawing at his core, whispering for him to lie down, to rest just for a moment. But the voice, it doesn't stop. Almost there. Don't stop. It's relentless, a beacon in the dark, pulling him forward when his body begs to quit. And then, through the haze, Thomas glimpses something, a dark shape against the white, looming like a mirage. He blinks. Snow stings the eyes. He's convinced it's another trick of his mind. But as he stumbles closer, it solidifies. An old, abandoned trapper's cabin, barely standing. The weathered logs sagging under snow, windows dark as empty eyes. Is it real? He reaches out, his frozen hand brushing the rough wood, and a sob catches in his throat. It's real. He stumbles in, collapsing against the wall, the wind's deadly howl muted by the frail shelter. The cabin is empty, no food, no heat, just dust and cobwebs. The air inside as cold as outside, but it's a barrier between him and death. And he huddles in a corner, wrapping himself in his coat, his breath shallow, his mind racing. How did he find this? Was that voice real? He shivers through the night as the storm rages outside, alive, but haunted by a question that he cannot answer. And by morning, the blizzard breaks, and Thomas, weak but breathing, finds his bearings and limps back to civilization. But here's the kicker. That cabin wasn't on any map he knew, and when he later tried to find it again with a search party, combing the area for days, it was gone. Vanished, like it never existed. Not a splinter, not a footprint, nothing. So what guided him? What spoke to him in that storm? Was it instinct, a trick of a dying mind, or something watching over him in the frozen dark? Thomas Reed's survival on February 3rd, 1977 defies every rule of nature. He walked for over 12 hours in a whiteout blizzard, in temperatures that should have turned him to ice long before he found shelter. Medically, he suffered frostbite on his fingers and on his toes, severe dehydration, and, of course, exhaustion, but somehow no permanent damage. He spent days in a hospital, his body mending, his mind haunted by that voice. "I heard it as clear as I'm talking to you now," he told a local reporter years later. His voice was still trembling with the memory. It wasn't me. It wasn't in my head. Something wanted me to live. His friends and family were torn. Some chalked it up to delirium, a brain on the brink weaving lies to survive. Others believed he'd encountered a guardian, maybe a spirit of the woods, something ancient that tied to that frozen land. Local lore in northern Minnesota whispers of helpers, unseen forces that guide lost travelers, but there's no proof. Just campfire tales passed down through generations. Thomas never went back into the Boundary Waters alone after that. He carried a quiet fear, a respect for something that he couldn't name. And the cabin? That phantom shelter, it became an obsession. He led search parties back to the spot, or what he thought was the spot, describing every detail. The sagging logs, the broken door hanging on one hinge, the smell of damp rot inside. But they found nothing, not even a clearing where it might have stood. Just endless snow and trees, mocking his memory. Was it ever there? Did something or someone place it in his path just long enough to save him, and then erase it from existence? We don't have the answer, but the chill of unknown lingers, as cold as that Minnesota night. Let's move to our second story, one just as gripping and even darker. Real quick, I just want to put you onto something that completely leveled up how I create. If you've ever thought about starting a podcast or even creating content that looks good and sounds next level, but you say, I don't have the equipment, Descript. And it just dropped something ridiculously wild. It's AI avatars. Say you're terrible in front of a camera, but just imagine being able to generate a video where you read the script, but you don't hit record. You write it. Descript makes it look like it's you saying it, and it looks really good. It doesn't look awkward, not robotic, it's seamless. If you pair that with what Descript already does with helping me with my podcast, editing with text-based, and if you're creating anything, a podcast or content for socials, or even you're just making videos, do not sleep on this. Go to get.descript.com/Nathan Morris to try it for free right now. That's get.descript.com/Nathan Morris. Link is also in the description. Now, back to the mortals. Let's step into the gut-wrenching terror Clara Henshaw faced that night. She pushes open the bedroom door, the faint creak of the hinges, the only sound in her quiet house. And before she can even process what's happening, a figure explodes from the shadows. It's a man, his face hidden behind a black ski mask, eyes glinting with cold intent, gloves on his hands, and a knife in his grip that catches the dim light spilling from the hall like a sliver of death. Clara's scream rips from her throat, raw and desperate, but he's on her in a heartbeat, slamming her against the wall with a force that knocks the air from her lungs. The knife presses to her throat, the cold steel biting into her skin, a hair's breadth from drawing blood. Don't move. Don't make a sound, he growls. His voice is low, gravelly, dripping with menace. And her mind is a whirlwind. Her kids aren't home, thank God, but she's alone. No neighbors close enough to hear her cry through the thick suburban silence. She's trapped in her own bedroom. This intruder's intent clear in the unblinking stare behind the mask. His breath hot and ragged against her face. Her legs shake, threatening to buckle as he forces her down to the floor. Her knees hitting the carpet with a dull thud. He yanks her wrists behind her back, binding them with duct tape from a bag that he's carrying. The sticky rip of the tape echoes like a countdown in her ears. Each movement is practiced. Mechanical, like he's done this before. Like he's planned every second of her terror. Clara's heart is a jackhammer, pounding so hard she thinks it's going to burst. She's certain this is the end, that she'll never see her children again, that this room, her sanctuary, will be her grave. He starts rummaging through her drawers, muttering to himself, pulling out jewelry and cash, stuffing them into his bag, but his focus keeps snapping back to her. The knife, never far from reach, always glinting in her peripheral, like a constant threat. Minutes drag like hours, each tick of the clock on her nightstand a hammer blow to her fraying nerves. Clara's fighting to stay calm, to think, to find any way out, but fear is a vice around her chest, choking her. She's losing hope. Her body trembling uncontrollably, tears mixing with the blood trickling from a gash above her eye where her head hit the wall. And that's when something impossible happens. From nowhere, a voice cuts through the suffocating silence. And it's not hers, it's not his, but a woman's voice, sharp and commanding, slicing through the air from the hallway. Get out now! The intruder freezes, his head whipping toward the door, the knife wavering in his grip. Clara's eyes dart there too, wide with shock, but there's no one. The hallway is empty. The house still dark beyond her bedroom light, a void of nothingness. The voice comes again, louder, angrier, reverberating with a fury that doesn't even feel human. "Leave her! I see you!" The man stumbles back, his bravado crumbling, the knife shaking in his hand as he scans the empty space, his breath hitching like he's being hunted by something that he can't see. Clara's as stunned as he is, her mind reeling. Where did that come from? She doesn't know this voice. It's not a neighbor, not anyone she recognizes, but it's real, echoing with an authority that fills the room like a physical presence. And the intruder curses under his breath, a string of panicked words, grabs his bag with jerky movements, and bolts from the door, his boots thudding down the stairs. Clara hears the front door, and it slams. Then, silence. A silence so heavy it presses against her bound form. She's still on the floor, shaking, but she's alive. She manages to crawl to her bedside, knock the phone off the hook with a trembling shoulder, and dial 911 with her nose, her breath hitching with sobs. Police, they arrive in minutes, and they find her still on the floor with her wrists bound, but no sign of an intruder. They search the house from top to bottom, and no one else is there. No footprints, no recordings, nothing to explain that voice. Clara swears she heard it, clear as day, a lifeline in her darkest moment. But who? Was it a guardian? Was it a ghost? The mystery remains, as chilling as the blade that nearly ended her life. Clara Henshaw survived that night in October of 1992 with only minor cuts and bruises, but the mental scars ran deep. She moved out of that house within a month, unable to sleep there without reliving the attack. The intruder was never caught, though police suspected he was a serial burglar active in the area, known for targeting lone women. Clara underwent therapy for PTSD, haunted not just by the man with the knife, but by that voice. "It wasn't in my head," she told a counselor. "It was outside me, protecting me. I don't know what it was, but I owe it my life." Some thought it was stress-induced hallucination. Others, including Clara, wondered if it was something supernatural, a protector tied to the house or to her, even. That house had no history of hauntings, no tragic past, yet Clara's story spread quietly among locals, a whisper of the unknown. It forces us to ask, in our darkest moments, can something beyond our understanding step in? Or does the mind weave miracles to save itself? I live for these questions, the ones that linger in the shadows of what we can't prove. Both Thomas Reed and Clara Henshaw walked away from the brink of death, guided by voices that defy explanation. Sometimes the unexplainable isn't a puzzle to solve, but a shiver to feel, a reminder that life can hang by threads we can't see. If you've ever experienced something unexplainable, a near-death moment, a mysterious intervention, a loss that haunts you, I want to hear from you. Join the Mortals community, a space for deeper conversations, exclusive behind-the-scenes content, and a chance to connect with others who feel the chill of these stories, just like you. And of course, members get early access to episodes, bonus content, and a direct line to share your own experiences. Check out the link in the description or visit nathanmorrismusic.com to join. Your story might be the one we tell next. And remember, new episodes drop every Tuesday and Thursday. Don't miss a single tale. But before we go, I want to shout out a tool that makes the show possible, and that is Descript. If you have ever wanted to start your own podcast or create content that sounds professional, Descript, that's my go-to. Has features like automatic transcription, easy audio editing, and even AI-powered voice tools. It takes the headache out of production so you can focus on the stories that matter. You should try for free right now at get.descript.com/Nathan Morris. Link in the description. Thanks for listening to The Mortals, where the walls come down, the mysteries stay unsolved, and sometimes the answers only lead to darker questions. I like it that way. Until next time, take care of yourselves. You're loved far more than you could ever know, even in the shadows.